Fill us with your love, O Lord, and we will sing for joy. So we sang during our responsorial psalm today, fill us with your love, O Lord. In the gospel, we hear Jesus looking at this young man. He says, Jesus looked at him and loved him. In a way, you could say that this loving look of Jesus is a summary and a synthesis of the whole gospel. Ultimately, Jesus shows this loving look by his redemptive sacrifice on the cross. Have you experienced this loving look of Jesus in all of its depth and intensity? You know, we certainly need this loving look. We all have a deep need to know that we are loved eternally, loved from all eternity. We have a deep need to know that look of love that we experience from family and friends, from parents, grandparents, spouses, children, siblings, and especially in those moments of deep prayer. This past week, I had the opportunity to go down to Birmingham to visit with my two sisters and my nephew. My nephew had just, he and his wife had just had their first baby about 6 weeks ago. And so we were there watching him and his wife look with this little newborn baby with such awesome, tender love. And of course, my youngest sister, it's her first time to be a grandma. And see grandma there beaming as she holds this first grandson of hers. That's a glimmer of the look of love that God has for us. That's how God looks at us, with this unconditional love. I've recently heard about a woman who had made a retreat. She was a Catholic, but just sort of a, kind of mediocre Catholic. She went to Mass on most Sundays, but really didn't participate in the life of the church at all. She just went to church on most Sundays. But some friends encouraged her, her husband encouraged her to do this retreat, and she had an awesome experience during the retreat. She experienced God's unconditional love for her at a certain moment during the retreat, and it really transformed her. So she made a commitment that after the retreat that she was going to start trying to go to daily Mass every once in a while when she could. She committed herself to daily prayer, at least 15 minutes every day. And she decided to join one of the prayer groups at her parish. And so for about 6 or 8 weeks, she was really feeling deeply connected to God, feeling and believing in and trusting in God's love for her. And she felt like she was finally, the first time in her life, really growing in her spiritual life. And then, as sometimes happens, as often happens, life happens. She missed a couple of sessions with that prayer group. She, sort of quit being real faithful to that daily prayer. She wasn't making the extra efforts to go to weekday Mass. And she began to feel in her back of her mind, begin to question, was that really real? Did I really experience that? She began to question God. Does God really love me like that? That's probably just my imagination. There's also these thoughts going on in the back of her head. I'm not really like those people in the prayer group. They're really nice to me, but I'm not like that. I'm just not like that. She was having these temptations. These are temptations. These are thoughts that the evil one brings up in our minds and in our hearts to make us doubt God's love for us. Luckily, she went and talked to a couple of friends that made the retreat with her, and they helped her to name the lies that she was listening to. Those are lies that come from the evil one, or they sometimes arise out of our own broken what Jesus tells us today. Jesus looks at this young man. He comes up and he says, he calls Jesus good. And Jesus asks him, well, then why do you call me good? Jesus is testing him. See, only God is the true good. So Jesus wants to know, do you believe that I am God, that I am God incarnate? Do you believe that the divine resides with me? Do you believe that I'm God or not? See, if he does believe that, then he will accept whatever Jesus' answer is. He'll accept it with faith and humble obedience. You know, our choices, our actions, our words, even our thoughts are only good when they're in union and in harmony with Jesus' way, with his will, with his truth, with Jesus' self-sacrificing love. So Jesus answers the young man, what do I need to do? And he invites him, just like he invites each and every one of us, to follow him with a total commitment, without reservation, without holding anything back. See, it's not enough for us to simply follow the rules, do good, don't tell lies, don't cheat, don't hurt others. Yes, we must do all of that. But following Jesus is about surrendering our lives to the one who loves us perfectly. It's much more than just following a set of commandments. The young man, he had followed those commandments. Jesus, when he asked Jesus, what must I do? He says, well, do you follow these basic commandments about how you treat your neighbor? But see, the guy has been doing all of that, and he knows in his gut that there's got to be something more. And so he looks at this young man, and he says, for you, you've got to sell everything. Now, we're not all asked to do that, thank goodness. But just, here's what Jesus asks of each of us. Get rid of anything and everything that keeps you from completely surrendering your life to him. When Jesus said sell everything, the man's face fell. And he goes away sad. That's the work of the evil one. It's the work of his own brokenness. It's the work of the world around him. The disciples look up and they're like, well, what in the world? Who can be saved? See, they were assuming that wealth is a blessing from God that also guarantees salvation. That somehow being wealthy and having this high status that he must have had somehow made salvation easier. And Jesus says, no. Often our possessions possess us. See, this young man was very attached to his stuff. The material world, to wealth, and probably he was a leader of the community, so he was probably attached to his status, the esteem others had for him. He was probably, in the eyes of the world, the perfect, faithful Jew. See, the disciples looked at him and they saw this accomplished, wealthy, seemingly wise, pious, and good young man. They think, well, he's got God's favor. He's earned God's favor. He probably was too attached to his position in society. We can get attached to even the good things that we're doing. We can make them into kind of an idol. Patting ourselves on the back for what a good, wonderful thing that we've done. How does the reading from the first book, the first reading that we have, the Book of Wisdom, look at this, teach us about this truth? It says, the one who is wise prefers God's wisdom and God's way. And if you read, I encourage you to go back and read that little passage. Before riches or power or even beauty or health or the esteem of others. blood, soul, and divinity. In the Eucharist, Jesus looks at each of us with the most awesome love, with incomparable affection. So let us humbly and gratefully receive and accept and live in the love that Jesus has for us, and then share that with the world around us. Fill us, this is our prayer today, fill us with your love, O Lord, and we will sing for joy. Amen.